Ole Miss and TCU about to come up, and Dave Bartoo joins us now in Little Cedars Hot and Ready Hot. I saw you laughing and smirking there, Todd. Like you guys were having a little. Were you guys chumming it up back there? What was going on there?
Yeah, of course we were. I asked Dave. I said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "It's been a long holiday season with all the bowl games, basically."
I guarantee it.
He said, "I bet it hasn't been as long a holiday season as it has for Oklahoma fans, though," which is true.
Well, let me start there. Before we get to these games, Dave, Todd was alerting me to a tweet that you had sent out regarding Bob Stoops yesterday. Can you elaborate on that?
On Bob, what did I do?
It was a couple nights ago. It was something about.
Was I drunk tweeting again?
It was about Rodriguez to Arizona, and then.
Oh, Mike. Well, I just thought it was.
Oh, Mike Stoops. It was Mike Stoops.
That was one of those ironic. So Oklahoma pushes out Venables to get Mike, and Arizona gets rid of Mike to get Rich Rod. It didn't seem like a full circle right there.
Basically, it worked out well for two of the three teams. It looks like.
Here it is. So let me make sure I got this right. He tweets: Arizona fires Stoops to get Rich Rod, and Stoops dumps Venables to get Stoops. Okay. That was the tweet. How far now? And you might maybe give a quick Cliff Notes version, Dave, of the different parameters that you use for your matrix. But I say that, set that up so you can answer the question that I'm about to give you, which is, how far did Stoops fall in the coaching category this year?
Oh, well, my basic elements of looking at football. In terms of telling stories with numbers, it's three things. It's home and away strength. It's a thing I called coach effect. There's positive coach effect, negative coach effect, and then overall talent. If you just use my talent rankings at the beginning of the year and use that to pick every single winner and loser, you're going to usually get about 70% of all the games correct. It really comes down to how much talent you have. There's, some teams that have great coaching, like K-State, some that have had real bad coaching, like a few years under, let's say, Mac Brown or a Muschamp. But overall, I just use those three things: talent, location, and coaching, TLC, to tell the stories of football programs.
And where is Stoops going? Like, where is he trending? Is he trending down at all?
Well, so there's a couple of there's actually two stories that I'm seeing in the numbers with Oklahoma. And remember how I mentioned that talent is very important, okay? And that starts with recruiting and attrition. And you look at Oklahoma, and from 2000 through 2006, so 7 years of recruiting cycles, the average class for the Sooners was 5.6. Okay, that was basically top 5 in the country. So you're talking about elite recruiting the first half of this century, but for the last 8 years, the average class is number 12. Now, that's not a huge drop-off, but when you consider that every single national title game over the last 15 years has been won by a team that has averaged a top 10 class the previous 4 years, when you're only averaging top 12, that's close. But what it's telling me from a talent standpoint is the Sooners, their overall talent stratification is a step back from where it used to be. They're a playoff contender type of talent, but they're not a national championship kind of talent level. Right on that edge. They're closer to, let's say, a UCLA, a South Carolina kind of thing. So one of the things is the talent has been trending away from elite over the last few years. Not terribly, but trending away from it. Now, Stoops, this may be an outlier year. Before this year, he was one of the most consistent coaches I've had in my numbers in college football. I mean, for 7 straight years, and 4 out of the 7, his win total was exactly what you would expect out of the schedule and the talent that they had. The other 3 years, +1 or -1. This year, it was -4 games below expectations for Oklahoma heading into that bowl game. So, they were one of 7 teams this year that entered the season having out-recruited after attrition everyone on their schedule over the previous 4 years. One of 7 teams. 4 of those teams are in the playoffs right now. so, we talk about disappointments this year. I think Oklahoma has to be right at or near the top of the list. The big question for me is, the recruiting's trending down a little bit. So we had one bad coaching year. 1 year doesn't necessarily make a trend. I think next year is really a huge one for Oklahoma to be bouncing back on this, or is somebody just burnt out in Norman?
Dave, we saw the Big 12 has played 3 bowl games so far. They all happen to be on the same day, Monday, and none of them went very well for the conference. TCU's about to start right now against Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. What do you make of the Big 12's performance this season? Do you think as a conference, from where you stood, it ended up being an overrated conference or an underrated conference?
I think all the conferences this year really had warts. There was nothing. Was there any division that really even stood out? SEC West, but after that, was there anything that was really amazing? Well,
remember, Dave, we don't have divisions here. We have one true champion, except for this year when we had 2.
That's right.
Well, no, you got co-divisions this year or something like
That's
that.
That's right. Yeah. One true champion. Mm-hmm.
But you know what I mean. I lump you into a division because some of these these divisions have 7 teams.
Right.
Right. Add 2 more teams and you have an 8-team division. You only got 10 there, so it's really not that far off when you look at it that way. But it depends on who you talk to. In terms of was the Big 12 overrated or not. Yeah, it was a bad day. But, consider this. The Big 10 also had a bad week in week 2 of this football season, and everybody wrote them out of the playoffs as well. So I don't take a whole lot of stock in these bowl games meaning that much. A lot of it has to do with matchup. A lot of it has to do with emotion. How in it are these teams? So they looked bad for a day, but shoot, if TCU, Baylor, and K-State all go out and win, you're kind of almost as good as your last, your last win or your last loss. So I'm not worried about the Big 12, having a bad bowl season or anything like that. I don't think it springboards a team, good or bad, into next year. A great example is Alabama and Oklahoma last year. That didn't really mean a whole lot for 2014.
That's your number one example. Dave Bartoo with us on a Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline. All right, quick for the people that are watching this game, TCU Ole Miss, break her down.
Oh, dude, I got Ole Miss on this one. Okay, I like the plus 3.5 in this football game. To me, in terms of offensive or defensive, this is just a great boxing kind of matchup because it's an offensive team versus a highly defensive team. But I do like getting that 3.5 points on the spread in this one. And when you look at point totals over the last 5 years, when you look at 3 points being scored in terms of the overall spread, that is a football number. Okay, teams covering by 3 points or less happened over 400 times in the last 5 years. The odds of it covering by 4 are nearly 5 times less than by 3. So that's why 3.5. Yeah. So when you're looking at numbers, actually, this is something that's going to go up on my website. I've broken down the margin of victory in every college football game for the last 5 years. And it will show you, for you sports investors, how important it is. Literally, in the last 5 years, there have been 362 different games in which the spread was 3 points at the end. 362. Okay, the spread of 4 points, only 121 times. So that 3.5 points, that is a big deal. If it had gone to 4, big deal. 2.5, big deal. You got to know your numbers when you're dealing with something like this and putting the odds in your favors from an investment standpoint. But I like Mississippi's motivation here. I think TCU, they got soul crushed by the playoff committee. And, I'm not sure what their motivation is going to be. I mean, you just beat somebody by 50.
That was my exact same argument. We just did our Easy Money segment a couple segments ago, and that was my exact same argument. And actually, let me switch real quick while we have you to the other game involving a Big 12 team. Now, I didn't use this as one of my games, but would you say the same theory applies as it pertains to Baylor against Michigan State? Baylor's a 3-point favorite.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking about that, but I think of the two teams, TCU had to be soul crushed, dude. I mean, you win by 50, you're number 3, and you just get tanked to number 6. If you're Baylor, if you actually really believed you were going to jump up to number 4, I would like some of your Kool-Aid because it sounds like fun.
Well, and with TCU, you won the day before. And
TCU just picked off a pass.
Everyone had roses in their mouths, as you said, Zach.
Right.
And
I
partied that night thinking we're going to the playoff.
Dave, you're right. You're right, Dave. I mean, yes, TCU, I think a lot of people agree TCU is probably the team that got hosed the most. But does it matter what the public thinks in that regard? Because all I heard was Art Briles, just complaining up a storm, and that's got to trickle down to the players a little bit.
But let me throw a little something at you too on the Michigan State Baylor thing. Is Baylor playing Michigan State is not TCU playing Ole Miss. Ole Miss and Michigan State, to me, are miles apart in their ability. You look at Michigan State, the 2 top 25 teams they played, they gave up a truckload of points. Everybody talks about Michigan State's defense. I say it's junk. I say that team ran on its offense this year. I think the defense was way down. I don't even have it as a top 25 scoring efficiency defense. When they played Oregon, when they played Ohio State, they got blown out. And I'm also on the radio at ESPN in Waco, and talking to those guys, when Baylor lost to UCF last year, everybody in that program took a ton of flack from the fans. They need redemption really bad. That's one of the things that they've been talking about for the last month is they need to redeem that embarrassment of UCF. So I think Baylor, the matchup is different here. I think they are playing for something in terms of their pride based off of losing to UCF last year, and I just don't believe in Michigan State's defense at all. I think Baylor's going to score 50 on them.
Touchdown, Horned Frogs.
Trickeration for a touchdown, a wide receiver pass.
Lisenbee threw the pass. Thank you.
There it is. So touchdown, Horned Frogs, a 6-0 there. All right.
My cousin Colby.
Really,
Good pass, Colby.
really quick, 30 seconds or less, if you can, on the semifinal games, Dave. Let's start with Oregon, an 8-point favorite as I see it here against Florida State.
Somebody like Florida State, I got them in the points in this one. This is the kind of profile that has given Oregon trouble over the last 6 years.
What profile is that?
Well, if you look at who Oregon has lost to, it's usually on a big stage, huge with the Rose Bowl, you get 4 extra media timeouts. They don't get to run their tempo. The teams that have beat them, the top 10 recruiters, and look at it on big stages: Auburn, Stanford, USC. All teams that are as good or better recruiters than Oregon that have the athletes on defense to slow them down. I like Oregon by 4.5. That's why I like Florida State getting the 9.5 points, depending on what book you're looking at. But if you're looking at these two games for an upset, I do like Florida State having a better opportunity to upset Oregon. Ohio State, I just can't trust Ohio State in that other football game. A guy who's starting his second game ever in his career.
Right.
I know they did great things against Wisconsin, but I don't trust the Ohio State defense, just like I don't trust the Michigan State defense. It runs through their offense, and a team running and trying to win through a quarterback who's starting his second game against that defense, to me, it's either betting Alabama or not betting at all.
Oh, man. See, I used Ohio. I took Ohio State, and my total reasoning on it, taking the quarterback situation into effect and everything, was Urban Meyer's got a month to figure this out, and I don't see Urban Meyer getting beat by double figures.
But so does Nick Saban,
No. If you're going to go for a spread, I think you're, in my pool, one of my favorite pools that I play every year is each game you either have to go over under the total or you have to take a line. You can't. It's nothing about winners. Okay, so in that one, I got Florida State and Ohio State in both of them. I'm not passing up 9.5 points. I think it's too much with all the talent on the field. So I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just saying if I don't have to bet this game, I'm not doing it because I just don't know what Ohio State's going to do with that quarterback situation.
10-4. Always a pleasure talking to you this year, Dave. I don't know if we'll do it again or not, but if we don't, just know that Todd and I are very, very grateful. You have done great work, as have our listeners.
And we may try to catch up with you before the finals.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that, but we're very thankful, as I know our listeners are as well, and I hope they send you a tweet every now and again. Thanks for doing it.
Take it easy, guys. Thank you.
All right,
Happy New Year.
You too. Dave Bartoo on Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline.